And I have my sweet coffee here. Like, just, I feel very vacation ready. I'm definitely, in vacation mode.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I have my sweet coffee. Okay. All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's class. I know some of you have just been waiting for this portion where we start to put it all together because I don't know, Sally, but like when I was starting, it was like getting the planets and the signs and the houses. That was okay. And then I try and bring the story together, and it was like panic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You just feel like you're all thumbs or something and nothing coheres.
Yes, so that's what we're going to start today, you guys. And with us, we have Miss Sally Ducharme back with us. And thank you so much for coming back and for all of your help during the academy. Gosh, you've just been such a gem.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I have so enjoyed watching each lesson. Such a variety of astrologers have come on. I've learned so much.
Yeah, my gosh. Well, and I laugh because as we're going through and we build this and we talk, I talk through with the teachers, how long should we go, all of these things. I have learned that 60 to 90 minutes is a real vague place for astrologers.
Mhm.
I'm like, you just talk until you run out of steam. That's kind of how this is going
Right.
to go.
Right.
Yes, which is beautiful because we do get a lot of really delicious, useful content.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay, well, so today we're going to start to explore putting this chart together. And today's lesson, you guys, we're going to start without the aspects. So if you're not at aspects yet, that's fine. Today we're going to start with planets, signs, houses, and how do we start to form that story. And I've actually found you can form a pretty good story just looking at that alone. I mean, there's so much more, but it's pretty useful.
Yeah. Yeah. The astrologer April Elliott Kent, who's written a good introductory book, said you want to think about the planets as an actor on the stage, that they're playing a certain role. And then the sign is like the costume that they're wearing. And then the house is like the setting. And I found that really useful when I started putting everything together.
Yeah, and it's so funny. And I teach that it is the what, the where, and the how. The
Perfect. Yeah.
the planet's going to tell us what's going on, what kind of things are happening. The sign is going to tell us the characteristics we're going to get that done as, and then the houses tell us what area of life will do those
Right.
things.
Yeah.
So whichever phrasing works for you, you guys, there are a million different ways as long as you're getting the story correct. And even better, I want to screen share and show you guys something really quickly so that you have it in your toolbox. We have created beautiful flashcards and useful tools for you guys. So you'll see as soon as we're done with this class, you'll see a link come up in the description underneath the video, which will take you to this page on my website. And if you scroll all the way down to where Miss Sally's beautiful picture is at, you'll see right here we've got the flashcards, the worksheets, and all of the chart examples from today for you to work with. So feel free to jump in and enjoy those so that you're able to have these key words that are just so beautifully built for you, okay? And it'll help you do some walking through as we go along here. So, my goodness, where shall we start? I know, I know. That's the question, right? Where
Yes.
shall we
Yes.
start? Okay, so how about I have a little slideshow pulled up for us, you guys, a little something. Let's start there. And I was telling Sally, you guys, I'm in full vacation mode. 1,000%. I'm down here in Galveston. So we're getting to do class from the beachy island. So hello,
Yes.
everybody from Texas. All right. Easy peasy. Here we go. Heading in. So here's what we're doing today. We're going to put the story together, start to see what's happening with the person that is sitting in front of us or the natives charts. We're going to explore the planets, the signs, the houses. We've got keywords, and then we're just going to practice because I think that the best way to do this is to just get in there and practice and need to say it out loud while I'm looking at where it's happening and start to have that discussion.
Yeah, that's a good point. Saying things out loud, I think, gives you another sense for putting it into your brain and keeping it there, hopefully.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I know that once I start to talk a chart out loud, it starts like that soul starts to come alive a little bit. And I'm like, oh, okay. I have a better feeling of that person whose chart I'm looking at.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So here's the players. And here's some of the things we talked about in the beginning, what we're looking for and how the story is going to go. The houses tell us where, the planets tell us what is happening, and the signs are going to tell us how we get it done. What are the characteristics? We're coming into Venus in Virgo this week, which I'm very excited about because I'm a Virgo rising. So I'm so ready to be like cute for the year.
Yeah. Time for a new wardrobe when you get Venus in your first house, especially in Virgo.
Oh, yes. Well, there will be some discernment around what's happening. But first, Sally, do you want to walk us through the quadrants that we may be looking at?
Yes, I think Kathy Rose had a lesson where she talked about the hemispheres of the chart. And so we want to think of that place, all of the planets that are above the horizon. So if you look at the line across a chart from the ascendant to the descendant, that is the horizon. And so all of the planets above the horizon are outward focused, that you tend to look to the world to give you what you need to grow. Whereas the houses below the horizon tend to be inward focused. And so even though you still have a career and you still have friends and things like that, it's more that inner journey that is the emphasis in your life. And so then planets to the left of the midheaven IC line, kind of dividing the circle the other way. On the left, those planets are rising. And so that shows someone who is more self-directed. The planets that are on the right side of the chart, which is from the midheaven down to the IC, those people are more others directed. They tend to need to cooperate and to work well with others in order to get things done in life. Or they may find that they have a little bit less agency when it comes to living their life. They need to take other things into consideration. And so that's why I say you divide the house into 4 quadrants then, that we'll talk about when we go through the chart, where a planet in each quadrant of the chart has a specific role to play. I guess we can talk about houses 1 through 3. Who is the person becoming? In quadrant 2, what is this person producing? We know we have the 5th and 6th houses in there, which is creation and work and service. Quadrant 3, how is this person connecting? And so that's when we're in more the others oriented in the outer world. And so if you have a lot of planets in that hemisphere or that quadrant of your chart, you tend to be very focused on connecting with others. And then in the final quadrant, houses 10 through 12, that's again in the outer world, but you're more self-directed. And this is, what is this person contributing? That's where career and groups fall. And so looking at the chart, the first thing you can see when you look at a chart is, okay, how many planets are in each quadrant? Is this person pretty balanced, or is there an emphasis in one above the others?
As you come back and you look at this and you look at this next to the chart examples that we've got for you, you'll be able to see that some of the explanation that's in here, you'll be able to find in the chart work as well to help you just have a little reminder of what was going on. So should we jump in? Are we ready to look at some charts? Let's do it. Oh my gosh, I'm like really excited because once you get into chart work, I just feel like it's like the sky is the limits from there. Okay.
It's interesting. You could have 10 different astrologers look at the chart and they'll see, it's not like they'll contradict each other, but they'll each see something different.
Exactly. And if you have not been to an astrological conference yet, you must go. You simply must go because that is a phenomenal time to see that happening. Okay, so the first chart we're going to start out with today is Lilibet Diana, and this is the daughter of Harry and Meghan Markle. So very exciting to look over this, and it was so great. Oh, when she was born, I was like writing the little calculations down, and I'm absolutely obsessed with the royal family anyway. So I just felt like this is a beautiful place to start. So let's
And
make this.
this is a little girl who everyone in the world heard about her birth. And you see that beautiful sun in the 10th house, which is the public attention.
Absolutely. Oh, and with the node, with Mercury, I mean, it is just a very mercurial situation over
Right.
there for
Yes.
this young lady, but she's steady. Taurus at the midheaven, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's walk through this one. And you want to get us started, Sally?
Yeah. So the first thing we can notice is that most of her planets are above the horizon
Exactly.
in the chart. You see the ascendant begins here at 29 Leo, and the descendant here is at 29 Aquarius. And so you can see this is a very busy upper hemisphere of the chart.
Yeah,
She has
very public.
Yeah, so you can imagine she's someone who's not only going to live a pretty public life, but someone who's going to look to the outer world to to bring her that sense of satisfaction and to live her best life.
Absolutely. And then the next most the preponderance of planets appears to be over to the west, but she does have two retrograde planets, which if you've seen the talk with Kathy Rose, you'll know those flip. But she's also got a Mercury that flips flops sides. So we're going to keep the focus up here into the southern region, which will just be very public, a much more extroverted kind of experience as well. This is definitely a day chart with the sun up in the sky. So shall we take it apart, planet sign?
Sure. Where would you like to start?
Let's start with that big old beautiful sun.
That is up there, isn't it?
Absolutely. So one of the things that you guys will see as well, I'll just show them to you briefly, is in your flashcards, we've created words. Sally put this beautiful printer-friendly set of cards together for you. So as you're going through, you have some keywords to begin and to create your conversation, okay?
Right, and that's where I said you could literally cut and paste these flashcards and cut them out and put them on index cards. And so then you would start by putting the sun flashcard, the Gemini flashcard, and the 10th house flashcard, line them up next to each other and start reading back and forth between the three. And you'll find that the coherence starts to happen, or as Stormie said, start to say them out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. And it'll start to just come together. But first things first, don't worry about the aspects and let's pull this sun apart. So we've got the sun in Gemini in the 10th house.
And so the flashcards, some of the words I used were the life force, the inner authority, basic vitality, creative power, conscious purpose. I don't know, Stormie, are there any other keywords that leap out to you?
No, I think those are beautiful. I know I talk a lot about the sun being light, heat, life, and vitality. So we know that this is a primary energy, especially externally, that will be important for her to work with and to grow into. So yeah. This is our her vitality, her ego, right? The movement.
Yeah. And that sort of inner burning fire. You think about this, if you can go into your solar plexus and just feel that energy. That's another way to connect with the sun. So Absolutely. You put it in Gemini, which is such a fun sign. It's very playful, very curious, very kind of looks at life as a puzzle that they're always trying to figure out. And then just that love of novelty and finding something new and exciting all the time. Some of the key words are curious, playful, adaptable, conversational, articulate, and dual natured. If you have any Gemini friends, you might know that you never are quite sure what personality is going to come at you.
Exactly. And it's an air energy. So what we're doing right now is we're just talking about the planet. We're just talking about the quality and the characteristics of the sign. And you can think about everything that you know about that sign, the element, the quality that it lives in. And if you've missed those lessons, you can definitely step back into the playlist. But so we know that this is an air sun. So it's going to be quick moving as well. Air doesn't typically just hang out.
No.
That is not a typical quality of air. So it's quick moving. So this will be a faster moving sun energy. And so the way that she will likely express her ta-da, her life force will be in a curious, quick moving, conversational kind of way.
Right. You can imagine she's going to be pretty early to talk and have lots of questions when she does start talking. And then also, we'll put that up in the 10th house, and you say, wow, that's going out into the world. The 10th house is a career, it's your place in the world, kind of where you fit in to society and make a contribution.
Absolutely. So, a job, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even as she goes along. We know that as a baby, her job is to baby it up right now, but she's doing that on a very public stage in the 10th house, published or public. We see you, it's very public. And so as she goes along in her life, we may see that she expresses her work in a very communicative Gemini kind of way. I also think that Geminis are good travelers.
That's true, right? Because they're so curious.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk in a little while when we get around to the 9th house, how that's enhanced a bit too. But yeah, and also this is a good aspect for a teacher.
Yeah.
And in a sign like Gemini and the 10th house, you kind of put those two together. I think given her family history, I doubt she would go into media, but that's another position of someone who might work in media.
Yes. I have that. I have Mercury and Gemini in the 10th. So
Right.
I know about that. And it's interesting because the ruling planet of Gemini, so the ruling planet of the sun is Mercury. Mercury is also very comfortable in Gemini, but retrograde.
Right. Yeah. So this enhances that Gemini energy, the energy that's curious and playful and articulate and conversational. And it brings it also into this area of a life career. So that tells us she's probably going to be very mercurial, do something involving communication in her career. But I don't know, Stormie, how do you read the retrograde Mercury?
I actually think that the retrograde, besides just being a wonderful placement for being a lot more introspective with what she thinks or maybe what she does, I think in the 10th house, it will have her delayed to actually present herself. Or, it could be a situation where maybe she presents very well in public. We see her doing something for a very long time. And later down the road, what she really thinks or what she really wants to work on or what's really important to her ends up coming out.
Oh, okay. Later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've found a lot of people born with Mercury retrograde are not traditional learners.
Absolutely. Me too. Me too.
Okay.
There tends to be, I don't love the word delay, but it is something different in how they learn or in how they communicate. One of the things I always wonder about when I see Mercury retrograde in Gemini is if this person will go on to learn things with their hands, sign language maybe, or be a person who, as they're learning, needs to very much so involve their hands, right? These are the
yeah. Or maybe even teaching people to use their hands in different crafts or skills like that would be another good Gemini use of that energy.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I would imagine, like you say, she'll kind of struggle a bit in those early years, and then she'll figure out how she's best learns and kind of figure out her own way to process the world.
And with the North Node being in Gemini as well, and we're all kind of trying to grow and get to that position, something that I keep in mind is that because I see the placements and I see the sun, doesn't mean that a person is fully innately those qualities yet. They may still be learning and growing into those Gemini characteristics, especially with the node there.
Right, yeah.
We're trying to grow towards that North Node set of qualities, and then she's got that ruling planet retrograde, so it just may take a minute to get her to pop up to the surface.
Right, and she's coming into life with quite a bit of baggage.
Yes,
that most of us don't have.
Yes.
So it could be. I can see her being a very playful and friendly child, but yet she's going to have security around her. I would say, I don't know, her whole life, but certainly while she's growing up.
Yeah. And I think that she will end up having quite physically Sun and Gemini striking eyes. I tend to find that Geminis have striking eyes.
I will notice that from now on. That's a good point.
Now we're all going to walk around and be like, Gemini, I like your eyes, you know? So I'll
Right.
be interested to see how this shapes her out physically as well.
I can imagine she'll be very attractive to other people. She'll just have a kind of charisma that draws people to her.
Absolutely. Well, and her father has bright red hair and her mother is mixed. This is going to create
Yes. Yeah.
interesting looking blend in
Hmm.
every way that she comes out. And she's baby number 2. So that always
Right.
makes a
Yeah.
difference as well. So, oh my gosh, we could just be here all day on the
I
sun.
know.
So let's explore maybe the moon and Chiron as they're here together, but the moon
Okay.
first.
Yeah. Now the moon is the emotions, instincts, your physical body. It also is nurturing and security.
Mm.
And so you put it in this very independent sign of Aries, which, is courageous and trailblazing and impetuous. So this is somebody who's going to feel things very quickly and just want to act on them. And it's,
Absolutely.
and I would think, I don't know, the eighth house, is resources from others, intimate relationships, death and loss. So this is kind of an interesting combination of energies.
Mhm.
You knowing her family history, of course. Um, she's named, for her great grandmother and her grandmother died quite tragically. So I imagine that's going to be knitted into her emotional um, sense of well being as she grows older. I think there's always going to be that. I don't know, Stormy, would you call it an unease or?
Yeah, and I think especially in the energy of Aries, which is so much about the identity that it almost, I feel like, and the eighth house is where we're starting to fall. We're having a fall here. So there is an unease when you even think about tipping forward to fall. We create a natural unease that comes into that energy. Can be highly transformational, which is the space of the eighth house energy, but still there is a certain vulnerability that is there for sure, and intimacy I think lies in the eighth house. You see into me, and she's on a very public stage. She's got a mother who not everybody loves and has changed the dynamic of the royal family. I am the child of that. It's very much so, I think, a vulnerable, sensitive underbelly place for her moon to be at.
Yeah, because you think of an independent moon. Aries moon is pretty independent and they just do their own thing. But this tempers that moon. I can see her thinking, why can't I just go run into the playground and play with other children?
Absolutely, especially in conjunction with Chiron, I think, is what has really given that a little bit of shape here as well.
Right. And you think of that wounding with the Chiron, and of course the story of her grandmother. Her own father, has experienced his wounding, and of course her mother, and the racial history that she's born with as well, and dealing with that. So you can see that this what would normally be a pretty kind of upfront, in your face type of Aries moon really has. I don't know if you would call it a dark passage, but it's aware of the darkness.
Absolutely. And so we've got this sun that has this need or to communicate and to share and disseminate and gather information, and a moon that wants to essentially be number one and be independent, but we see that each the sun and the moon have been tempered by some slow down energies on both sides of them. So,
Right.
that's really interesting as we watch her grow. How long will it take for her to actually like really use her big voice and find her identity in this?
And you can see in the eighth house too that moon eventually will be put to work in a career. You can see her going towards something where she's helping other people who are experiencing difficult passages in life.
Absolutely. Oh, like it's so exciting, and we've only done like a couple placements already.
Yeah,
and
it's
we
funny how the sun and moon and Mercury can really tell the story.
tell, yeah, so much, so much. Okay, where should we go next?
Okay, well, should we look at her eighth house with Venus and Mars in it? I'm sorry, 11th house with Venus and Mars?
Yes, let's do it.
Because this is the house of friendships. And you put the sign Cancer into the house of friendships. And, you know, this is somebody who loves her friends, um, very nurturing and caring towards others. And also, you think about the 11th house as being groups, and you can see her being drawn towards groups of people whose mission is to care for others.
Absolutely. Well, and I do think it's interesting just knowing the history of the family as well. The 11th house, my family are my friends, but she's got this wide distance between Venus, who wants to attract in that family and that comfort and be with it and be nurtured, and Mars, I can actually do it. My action is way down on the end of this house, right? And we think about the story that she's born into, and she is away from that space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so very interesting already. But I do wonder too if down the road, as we see this Venus energy, which is that love and that affection, if she doesn't end up having a really deep tie with her mom.
Yes. Yeah, her mother is her friend.
Her mother is her friend, you know, and probably too, just the nature of things, she's got to be tucked in. You know, we talked about the security and talked about the, which moon in the eighth house, power struggle, security. You know, she might be looking at her mom for quite some time.
Right. And I would think with that Mars in Cancer there, that she would be drawn towards protecting others within the family, be very protective of her mother.
And probably her little brother.
Yeah. And also, maybe she might draw friends who don't have her best interests at heart with the Mars there. And she's going to have to be a little bit guarded about, are people interested in me, or are they interested in just being, you know, part of this kind of charmed circle that her parents live in.
Absolutely. And when we look at, you know, this is quite down the road, but when we look at in terms of her Venus energy and how she will need to have that affection expressed and given, what do you think about that?
You know, I think that she's going to, I can see her forming friendships at a very young age that she just carries through life, that she's always going to be there for her friends. And that's going to be very important to her. But also, she could be kind of sensitive to slights, and you know, sometimes just feel a little insecure if she's not getting the response back. You see Cancer in the 11th house with Venus as someone who just pours himself into relationships and connections, and it doesn't always come back to them.
Yeah.
And so learning to live, I think having Mars there is going to help her be a little bit more discerning, instead of just, if anyone is here, I'm going to be there for them, and start to sort of sort out who's really here as a genuine friend.
Absolutely.
I think it's a gift that she has both planets in that house.
I do too, actually. I think that's really, really great. And I giggle a little bit because I think about, you know, in the synastry and stuff when we work with that, that likely once it comes down to it, her partner in life may come from a friendship space.
Yes.
Very Cancerian, because we have to be friends before I'm likely going to
Right.
be willing to be around you. But also that Venus is attracting in, you know, like you've got to be able to get into my circle at all for us to have a chance. But Venus also around the identity of her money, her wealth, her resources.
Yes, I totally left that out, but yes, she's born with a silver spoon in her mouth for sure.
Absolutely. Which is super, super interesting to see that we've got this Gemini sun, this Aries moon in some placements, but all of this comes from the family. And I think she has a breakout session down the road where she's like, I get it. I'm attached to these people, but this is what I think. This is what I want. Right.
Right. And I think she'll develop her own aesthetic too.
Absolutely.
Eventually with that Venus in Cancer, she'll know exactly what she likes. And I can imagine her being kind of sensitive to things like foods, different fabrics and things with Venus in Cancer. And also in the 11th house, just kind of wondering, why can't everyone have, you know, what they need to live? Why can't people have lives that are beautiful and be very motivated to helping others?
Absolutely. Well, since we've looked at the 11th house, which is typically the terrain of Aquarian energy, why don't we look at her Saturn?
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting Saturn, isn't it? Below the horizon. And Saturn is some of the key words for Saturn are self-discipline, hard work, reality testing, responsibility, and limits. And we're putting it in the sixth house, which is daily work, routines and rituals, health, injuries, services. So this is someone who's going to be working pretty hard to learn skills, you think, with the sixth house, who's going to be disciplined about diet, exercise, and then has a real service mentality towards others. And so what do you think then when you put all this energy into Aquarius, Stormy?
Oh, the very first thing I thought is kind of the theme I keep seeing in this is that her daily routines are going to be locked down. Aquarius, the people, friends, social group zones, all of this kind of has a Saturnian vibe to it. So her circle, I think, in a daily way will be very small and very contained. It'll be very Saturnian. Um, she may not just go to Becky's preschool.
Right, yeah.
And retrograde, almost like the friends have to come in or the social things have to come
Right.
in.
That's true because that's just necessarily how she has to live her life.
Mm-hmm.
But also Aquarian too, she likes to be with people who are on the same page, that
Absolutely.
they have a shared sense of mission. So I can see her really getting into service projects with groups and not really being comfortable just to hang out, but she wants to have, let's get together and raise money to feed
Right.
hungry children. Or, she's always going to like to have that shared sense of mission with her friends.
Yeah. And, it's kind of neat because with the family connections that she does have, she has access to Aquarian people, interesting people,
Mm-hmm.
maybe people or ideas or causes that the average Joe doesn't have the option to interact with. And this creates a great space for her to find and to use that voice and be passionate about those things.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this placement. I think that this shows that she's not just born to be, a celebrity child, that she's really going to find a sense of purpose and really make a difference in this world.
Oh, I 1000% agree with that.
Yeah, you kind of look to Saturn in the chart for the backbone.
Yeah. Mars is great because Mars there's a lot of desire with Mars, so the family, the nurturing, the friends, but Saturn's going to make sure you actually get it done.
Right. Yeah, it's the follow through for sure.
Yeah. And I love it. Laura Nalbandian talks about Saturn as an authority and reminds us that author is in that word authority. So this is a place where as she works with Saturn and learns the lessons around this, she also gets to write her own story.
Mhm.
I love that.
Right. And that's part of the Aquarian energy too, is the innovator who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to do things the way everyone else does them. So I can see her with this placement also maybe wanting to start her own nonprofit or say, I don't like the way this is really being run. I think I can do a better job.
Yeah, the one thing I feel a little bit surprised about I've looked over Harry and Meghan 1,000 times, is she does not have this push of the Virgo, Leo, Sag energy. Not this
That's a good.
huge traveler. She feels a lot more steady, grounded, but
Mhm.
curious. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I would think so. That while Harry and Meghan might have sort of global interests, she might be looking more to the people around her in the community where she lives. And also, I think she's um, the curiosity she has is maybe for the everyday
Mm.
and for people one by one instead of in great masses. And and so yeah, I can see her being a little bit of a outlier in her own family. But her parents being who they are, I think they'll celebrate that.
I do too. I do too. Okay, how about Jupiter?
Oh, I love this Jupiter in Pisces, which of course it loves being in Pisces on an angle, right by her descendant. And so Jupiter is, your enthusiasm, your faith, your optimism, um, good fortune, adventure, expanding horizons. And so you put all this energy into Pisces, which gives her, so deepens her compassion and empathy towards others.
Absolutely.
Also, maybe even brings in some interest in things like the arts, especially dance with Pisces. I can see, and then Gemini, being quick and moving around. I could see her maybe being loving dance, but just that sort of benevolence towards people. And then you put it right there in her seventh house, right at her descendant. And I think she's going to be seeking a very extraordinary partner, don't you, Stormy?
Oh, I absolutely think that 1,000%. And I always, we talked a little bit about the Venus Mars in the 11th house and, being mindful of who is being drawn to her. And she's also bringing into her circle. I pay attention to Pisces when it shows up in the seventh house too, because we can have a vision or an
Mhm.
ideal of something. And we just have to be mindful that it is what we're looking at, but there is an extraordinary amount of energy in that Jupiter and Pisces. And I think a lot about Jupiter's gift of wisdom to kind of pack her with all of this Piscean knowledge and wisdom, but she can't keep it for herself. She actually has to take it out and give it away.
Mm.
So in one way, with such a family appeal, I wonder if she is the peace bringer.
Oh, but well, in a way, just given her name,
Just given her name.
it
Ah,
just brings together some divided factions in her family.
mhm,
So yeah, I love that. But she's just going to love everybody. She's not going to take sides,
mhm.
and so, and I think everyone's going to love her. And so I can very much see that this child is going to be just what this kind of, I guess we might call it dysfunctional family, the
Sure.
extended family needs.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because it maybe doesn't sound like the most extraordinary thing to be a healer of family units, but sometimes that's the piece of the gift or the purpose,
Mhm.
and to bring things to closure, very
Right.
Piscean. Everything is everything, reaching between the past and the world. But also, I love Jupiter and Pisces. I think this is the best kindergarten teacher ever.
Yes. Yeah, because they love everyone and want them to be their best selves. And it's just, and so I can see her partner eventually being someone who is almost like a teacher to her, because you think of Jupiter being teacher. So
Mhm.
someone who's very evolved on this path that she's following and that will really partner with her to help her carry out her vision.
Absolutely. Even in terms of business partnerships and connections,
Mm.
charities, things like that, elderly specialty populations, these things I think will be very important to her. She can come on over here and be an astrologer too. That's fine.
Right. This is a great aspect for an astrologer.
Absolutely. So come on over a little bit. You are welcome. And so Pisces, Neptune is sharing space with Jupiter. They're both very, very comfortable in
Mhm.
Piscean energy.
Right, and that Neptune is your spirituality. And so you can see that her spirituality in Pisces is just, she knows that this is not all there is. She almost intuitively knows that we're part of a greater story, and that, she's on a path. So I can see from a very young child her understanding that and also finding partners who share that vision with
Absolutely.
her.
Well, and I'm just thinking, and you guys will get a class on this too, but I'm thinking at just looking here, she might be, her natal lunar phase might be crescent. So genuine ideas of pulling away from the past, you know,
Yes.
would be a big piece of this theme and a piece of her spiritual belief. But like you said, it would be wrapped in there's more.
Mhm.
There's more. Ah, what a lovely
I know.
story.
This I get more and more excited about this chart the more we look at
Yeah, me too.
it.
Me too. Now we're really getting into it. Yes,
now,
absolutely.
now, if like 18 years from now, you're looking at stories about her in the National Enquirer or something, and think, "Huh, where's this great spiritual being who's going to transform the world?" Just give her time. She might sell her wild oats because Jupiter in Pisces and the seventh house. She might have a party phase of life, don't you think, Stormy?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there will 100% be the love that is not the love,
Mm.
down the road.
Right. A little bit of glamour, maybe, that takes a while to wash off.
Yes. Yes,
Yes.
but it'll come very good-heartedly, I
Mhm.
think, So when she is 18, 19, you guys come back to this video and we'll all watch together and see what's happening and what's playing out
They
here.
just wait for her first Saturn return. When it comes back to that Aquarius in her sixth house, she's going to get things figured out by then and be on her path.
Oh yeah, I think at that nodal return though, we'll definitely see her pop up here in public with something.
Yes. Yeah, at 18 or 19 for sure, especially in her 10th house.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So we'll be here watching you.
Right, right.
All right, where should we go next? How about Pluto?
Pluto in the fifth house in Capricorn. So you think Pluto in the fifth house in Capricorn is, you think about change and transformation. It's in Capricorn, that hardworking sign, and in the fifth house of pleasure and joy. So that's kind of an interesting connection of three different energies. So I'm thinking someone who is going to work very hard to bring out transformation and change. That's sort of the breaking down of the old and the building up of the new, which is the energy of Pluto, and have a great time doing it in the fifth house.
Absolutely. Well, and I think there's still this theme because that Pluto is retrograde, Capricorn, authority, traditional family, all of those kinds of things. I think there is a transformation from the family dynamic of the past or from what the royals have been in the
Yeah.
past. So there's very much so that transformation that comes through that. But she's got a son that's in public, so she may still, for very long time, be held to this, oh, you're their daughter thing. And for her, that might feel very painful to need to
Yeah.
transition through to find her own thing, you know. But the other thing I think of just in general with Pluto being at 26 degrees, which is a pretty powerful vibration, I think, for that planet, is that her ideas around what she wants to do later on with her own children
Mm.
may feel a little bit different. And I definitely think with the retrograde Pluto, she is going to give these nice folks a power struggle.
You think so? That
I
she'll
do.
try to control them and then they'll have to rebel against her.
I think so. Now, I'm always interested when I see a chart that has Scorpio in the fourth and Sagittarius in the fifth, because typically what I've seen in my practice is that Scorpio in the fourth means dad is absent in some way. And Sagittarius in the fifth, this is children or parents that are not the biological parent. So I will be interested to see how this shapes up for her in her life, and that may bring a piece of the power struggle.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
So are we thinking she could possibly be a child that's pulled between two parents?
Potentially, it could also mean, a lot of times what I see with Sag on the fifth is step parent or adopted children
Oh, okay. So she
for
could
herself.
potentially adopt children.
And in her life, though, I wonder if this does mean that there is, that potential for some, like you said, some pull or some change around the parenting arena. And that may feel very Plutonian. There may be a power struggle that presents itself.
Yeah, I can see. Well, just even now, she's in a little bit of a power struggle between her father's family
Mhm.
and then her parents, who themselves have been in their own power struggle. So that could possibly, but she loves her grandparents, but yet loves her parents, and yet they're very divided.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to see how that could, manifest itself for
And
sure.
that's interesting too about possibly adopted children, maybe even stepchildren with all that 11th house energy, which is other people's children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and gosh, and she's just got that Jupiter, who's the ruler of the fifth house. It's over in Pisces. I don't care. Let's just all love each other. Like it's very, but traditionally, yes, when I see this in a chart, I started having conversations about where was dad? What's the step parent or the adoption situation?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's very interesting. That's something we'll continue to watch then.
I know. It'll be good. Okay. I think the only one we haven't done is Uranus.
I think that's the part of a significant piece of the puzzle, don't you? Got Uranus in the ninth house.
Oh, absolutely. And in Taurus, where it, you know, poor Taurus is being shaken, not stirred up there.
We're all experiencing that. The things that normally should be stable are not stable right now.
Right.
I mean, have you tried to buy a common household appliance recently?
Yes, Josh and I were just talking about how every purchase we seem to have made in 2021 has some element of electricity issue to it.
Right. And the delays in getting it.
Yes.
So nothing that we normally have counted on, housing prices, you know,
Oh,
nothing that we've counted on as being stable is stable right now with Uranus. And so you put all that into her ninth house, which is her worldview
mm-hmm.
and how she looks at the world. I think she's going to carve out her own path eventually, that what she's been taught and what she's been raised with, she might just fly in the face of and say, no, I don't accept this. I'm going to carve out my own worldview. I don't know. Is that being a little too vague? Can you see that?
No, I get that. Especially, I think of where is the ruling planet of Taurus, and it's over in Cancer. You know, and then it's in that 11th house. The Uranian energy likes to live in the 11th house. So, you know, we've kind of got this dance here of a breaking free, kind of a lightning kind of energy that is available still around the family. And this is just a piece of the nature of what she was born into as well. But I think the thing to keep in mind is that what she was born into is a part of the lessons. It's not just what we see, but it is a part of her story and a part of the break free of this chart. I also think that she may be a mover. She may be willing to move. Like I will move, or I will live someplace interesting,
Mhm.
stably though. You know, like
Right, right.
I can do the let's live in a hut for maybe 2 nights, and then we need to then we need
Right.
something solid. But
Yeah,
you know,
and she might be drawn to friends, Venus, you know, who are interested in that kind of adventure. Um, and I would think that she might shape a little bit against the restrictions that security place on her,
yes.
and maybe be one who's trying to break free.
Yeah.
Kind of like those movies you see where a Secret Service man and the president's daughter, you know, are on a chase and end up falling in love or something, you know. So I can see her not quite understanding the security needs around her all the time, and maybe really loving to go places where people do not know who she is and she's not famous.
Yes. Oh gosh, that is a great description of that, I think. And her entire, you know, generation born under this, I think will just buck tradition a little bit, or find really different and interesting means of creating value systems. You know, Uranus and Taurus is barter. There's some let's barter for this.
The gig economy, right?
Right. Yeah. You know what? You know how to fix carpet and I know how to cook. Let's maybe figure out what we do with that. And there's real value and self-esteem, I think, built into that generation, but it's also a tech gen.
Yes, yeah, definitely. That their basic life is dependent on technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this will be very interesting. I don't know. When you kind of summarize this, what do you see? Because I definitely feel the theme in this chart over and over again of a pushing and pulling away from the family ideals, but also a bringing back around of. But there's a
Right.
real, I think, independent spirit here.
Yeah, I think that she's going to struggle for a long time, at least maybe up until her first Saturn return, against this being Harry and Meghan's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's eventually going to find her own career path, her own mission. She'll go to Bangladesh and find that she can live there without being recognized, or Turkey or something, and maybe even having a home there where she's away from family, but yet she'll always still be very much attached to them and loves them. But I think maybe needing to carve out her own identity is her life path.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that 1,000%. She can't stay in the South Node energy, the I know.
No. And also I know this is another lesson, but the ruler of her chart is the sun because she's a Leo rising. And that sun in the 10th house is that she is destined to really carve out her own identity and her own path. That's what she's born to do.
Yeah, and if we look just around her wheel in general, she's got some strong placement. This is a tough cookie we're dealing with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
She's got it. When she finds it, she'll find it and will
Right.
know.
And I still think she's going to have a lot of fun along the way too.
Oh yeah.
You know, you see that a lot with celebrity children. They tend to go through that phase when they're in the tabloids a lot and they're out partying
Sure.
and then eventually they, you know, figure out what they want to do, and that's not a big thing to them anymore.
Absolutely. Well, growing up is tough, and then you do it in public.
Right.
That just adds a little panache to the whole thing. Awesome.
For sure.
Shall we take a quick journey through another one? Let's go right here. Hopefully this is big enough for everyone to see.
So this is the 1989 chart.
1989. I'm an 80s baby, so I have a very fond appreciation for 80s charts.
Yes, and you can see she was born, or he was, I will say they were born at a particular time in history when you can see the big planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn were all lined up.
Yeah.
So that was a big time in history, you know, with the Berlin Wall coming down and communism falling and the internet being born, and a lot of things were happening in the world.
A lot. And we see the preponderance of planets are below the horizon line, but even that, we've got a Jupiter who would be high in the sky by itself, but because it's retrograde, it even flips down. Yeah. So this is a very northern hemisphere heavy chart. So down at this person's going to have to be working to rise up, not letting the roots hold them down. So a lot of focus will be in the foundation. And then if we look, there's a lot of the planets to the west, which leaves pretty much the moon over there with Pluto kind of on their own.
Right. Yeah. The moon and Pluto is just thinking, I'm trying, you know, to carve out my own path, but there's all this other stuff going on in my life that I need to deal with. So this is someone who's definitely others directed and inward looking. So even though people might say, this is great what you're doing, or give them an award or something, it's always how they feel about themselves and what their own journey is that is going to be important to them.
Absolutely. Okay, let's start with the sun, the tada, the light, the heat, the vitality.
Yes, the vitality in Sagittarius, which is honest, adventurous, outdoor loving, optimistic, faithful, and opinionated. Don't get your Sagittarian friends started on hot topics.
Oh yeah,
sure to have an opinion.
they're gonna have an opinion. You're gonna be there for a minute, and I think it's always funny when Sagittarius, like when you get them into a place where they do, you know, they come into the topic because then they laser in. Yeah. Other than that, it's a fire energy that I feel like this is fire in a dance.
Right? Yeah, you don't see the fire like you do right away with the Aries and the Leos, but with Sag, you get them going on their soapbox. There's the fire.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like that, I think, with any planet or any sign, that is mutable. Like you kind of have to get them out of their wave, and then you can see the expression of that element like really clearly.
That's a good point. Yeah. You just, it's not always readily apparent. Beautiful signs, but it does come through. Yeah. And with it being in the 4th house, along with Mars, also that action-oriented brings that same Sagittarian energy. I would imagine this is someone who's from a household that was pretty dynamic, that grew up with maybe a lot of opinions being expressed. Sagittarius could also be religion, maybe in a very religious household. So someplace from a very strong place is where they started. Would you agree, Stormie?
I think so, in terms of, the information or the belief system that was there for sure. But again, it's a chart where I see Scorpio and Sag 4 and 5 right here. So I would ask, what was the situation around dad, and what was the situation around maybe a step parent or someone who the piece that was not necessarily like the parents that had such a huge influence
Mm.
into the beliefs of this person's life.
Oh, so would you think that Mars on the IC would be kind of an indication of a step parent or maybe even a division in the family?
I would think a little bit more. The question I would ask with that placement is, was there a stronger male energy that maybe was, a grandparent or a teacher or a
Oh,
pastor who threw some kind of belief into the family unit and that helped shape it just a little bit?
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
this person's energy throughout their life will always be directed towards home
Mm-hmm.
and family. That's going to be an important focus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the moon is also in a mutable energy. So I do wonder if this person has, from some of the ideas of home, from the beginnings, the roots, if there wasn't a nervousness about even coming to astrology or coming up
Mhm.
out of those roots to other ideas.
Oh, right. That's a good point because they might have been raised with a lot of skepticism towards things. And so they would look at astrology sort of sideways, and think, how can this be real? That they have that emotional sense of practicality with that Virgo moon. And it's in their first house and it kind of defines who they are as a person.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
I can see a conflict between what they are raised with and then their own kind of analytic sense of, um, can this be right? Could what I'm being taught be the truth? Hmm.
Yeah. Well, in the sense, I think about this Virgo moon as well, especially there in the first house, that as a person, I think it's and it was made very clear to them that it is important to be well put together, clean. You don't walk out of the house just looking any
Right.
kind of way. Like there's a very
Right.
Virgo kind of energy, which even in that, in getting ourselves ready to do things like first house, go out, see the public, um, this can raise the nervousness or the anxiety, I think, of mutable energies.
Right. And that perfectionist quality that the Virgo has, that, nothing is quite right. You stand in front of the mirror and trying to get things straight or something. And then also you think about a Virgo moon as being kind of hard on themselves.
Yeah.
That inner voice saying you aren't good enough, you could have done better, rethinking things. So that I think would contribute to the inner anxiety as well.
Yeah, but it's so interesting because we've got a sun and a moon that both want information, though,
Right.
and so that is an interesting place to be when you maybe, depending on where and what you've come from, right?
Right.
Maybe education and information was absolutely, we go to college, we do this, you study this. Maybe these were principles that were absolutely in this person's life, but in a very traditional role. We've got a stellium here in Capricorn,
Yes.
so to maybe not be just the college professor, but be the college professor that also studies astrology or also studies crystals or healing in some way.
Right, with the Uranus, Neptune, Saturn all lined up there, you're going to combine traditional learning with a lot less than traditional learning. And also a deep spirituality. Uranus would be the a-traditional path, Saturn would be the traditional path, and then Neptune would be this spirituality. So seeking truth, that Sagittarians like to seek truth, but through channels in Capricorn in the fifth house, and Mercury tied up there too with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
their antenna is out. They want to learn about the whole universe.
I think so too, but they just have to get out of their rooting just a little bit to be able to see over the horizon to see what else is out there. But Sagittarius will do it. They rise.
Right. And this person can study like heck. I mean, look at that Mercury Saturn conjunction in the fifth house. This is probably the kid you had to tell, stop doing your homework. It's time to go to bed.
Absolutely. I know. I love it. I'm like, whenever I see Sag energy in general, I'm like, okay, you already know the question why
Yeah.
is available. Okay, but why? But why does it do that? But why?
Right. And then you go into that Capricorn and you start just digging, 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 and you just can't stop. This is a person who could go down a lot of internet rabbit holes, I think.
Absolutely. Internet rabbit holes. I love that. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, and the fifth house is what you love to do. And this person just loves to study, loves to learn,
Mhm.
and always is challenging themselves to do better.
Yeah. What about this Venus?
So we've got that lovely Aquarian energy, friendly, communal. We talked about in Lilibet's chart, having Aquarius in the sixth house, and what she does tends to draw in the group and her sense of service. And, Aquarius are people who have this great sense of humanitarianism. And so I would imagine that they are seeking work that enables them to feel that they are doing things that make the world better and help people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not so much as doing Meals on Wheels, but maybe doing some sort of a global hunger initiative or something to help mankind in a broad level. And also innovative. With that Venus and Aquarius, I would say this is a person maybe who's tried a lot of different diets and exercise programs. Back to that internet rabbit holes, probably reading about, let's try the latest low carb, or let's try the latest paleo, or I think there's one now where you just gorge yourself one day a week and then starve the other.
Oh my goodness. There are options, is what that
Right,
means.
right. So always kind of that changing, finding different ways to enhance their health.
Absolutely. Well, and it's, with Venus, I think about the romantic notion, of course, and I think that a person would need to be very Aquarian, come to this person in a friendly way. Or this would be how they, peacock out is, let's be friends. I'm your interesting friend. It's kind of that energy, but Venus would draw it in. And so I think that, someone coming from a social group or an established group may be easier to get close to this person. But also Venus is in an air energy. So I think to really be held and felt and understood and share the affection, this person needs conversation, needs friendship, needs to be able to share the information that's going on, or it would be very hard to feed this Venus energy.
Yeah, and I think too they wouldn't be somebody who just wants to hang out, but they really seek people who share their interests and sense of mission. That you have to engage this person on a mental level in order to connect with them. I can't see them, especially with that Virgo moon, being all that comfortable with true confessions.
Yes, I don't think so either. Plus, Venus and Mars are in pretty independent energies where it's like, oh, let's have the best conversation ever. It's playful. There's an energy to it, but also, can you leave?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have your own things to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially with all that fifth house energy. And then Venus up here in the sixth, this person loves projects and always has stuff going that they're working on. And I'd also be interested to know if this person has children.
Me too. Me too. Because if
This
they
is
do,
yeah, the children would just be the focus of their life for as long as I think they're growing up, and maybe afterwards. What would you say this kind of parent would be, Stormy, with so much energy there in Capricorn?
yeah, I actually would wonder if it doesn't do, you know, in this particular chart, maybe the Capricorn is a feminine energy, but it's the fierce feminine, so maybe a little bit more structured or a little bit more here. I want to have these things together and in order. I kind of wonder if this isn't the parent that's like the soccer parent, has
Yeah.
all of the things. But because Uranus is also in Capricorn in this chart, it makes me think that however this parent has shown up, it's very different than what their parents gave them.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. That they want to, maybe they had been kind of felt hemmed in by the traditional upbringing. And then that Uranus there says, I want my child to make up their own mind. I'll take them to different churches and let them to decide if they want to worship at one of them. And being very proud of their individuality and kind of giving them the space they need to develop their own things too. Yeah, I think if you had just Saturn and Neptune and Mercury there, we wouldn't have that. But Uranus kind of leads off the stellium here. And so I think that's kind of the key to that house.
Yeah, and I almost have the vision, however right or wrong we are. So if this is your chart, you got to let us know in the comment section down below. But maybe we came from something a bit more structured in terms of a belief system. Now I have my children and my education, but also we have crystals.
Yeah.
But we have crystals, but you also have to do your homework.
Right. Yeah. I can see this person functioning more in the traditional father role than the traditional mother role with children. That here's the expectation. It's up to you to meet it rather than that, oh, you poor thing, you get a trophy even though you just participated or something. This would be a parent who says, why are we having a preschool graduation?
Yes, that's definitely, but they're there, they've got it together. Whatever's
Right.
happening, the pieces are well put together for sure.
Yeah, and teaching children to do things for themselves, knowing that builds their self-esteem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we've also got Saturn here though. Which Saturn's not retrograde here. So I think in a very straightforward way, because Saturn is also comfortable in Capricorn as its ruling planet, there is some nice structure that's available. So they probably do know how to create that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But Capricorn's idea of fun, fifth house, and pleasure, and what is pleasurable to a Sag,
right?
Maybe I wonder if the work with this Saturn isn't for this person to find their way to their own pleasure. What actually is. I think that making money, having resources is probably a real treat to this person.
Oh, okay. With the Mercury ruling the second house being in the fifth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that moon, like I actually think, and Taurus is high in the sky up there. I think that being financially comfortable or making the way there, and it is Saturn, and so maybe there has had to be some struggle in order to find that. But I do think that finances and resources are going to play a big portion in the pleasure and achievement for this.
And this is the person who has learned delayed gratification.
Oh yeah, Jupiter's retrograde.
Yeah. And then with Saturn there in the fifth house, I kind of enjoy budgeting. And setting goals, like this is the amount of money we need to have before we can take this trip. And that kind of planning, that's a strategic approach to pleasure. Yeah. They might plan their vacation a year ahead.
I love it. Okay, who did we leave out?
Well, Jupiter up there, I guess, would be the only one. What would we, of course, Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter loves being in Cancer. It's a very loving and nurturing, in a global way, energy. But of course, it's in retrograde. So what do we do with that?
Yeah, and it's, again, we've got another placement together with Chiron. So, and Chiron is retrograde at this time. So I do wonder if there isn't, from this sun energy, the genuine home space, if that Jupiter isn't undoing something from the family unit, isn't going back into, or it's like there's a hold back from the family unit, something that came from my roots, maybe is not applicable now, is not applicable to how my son wants to shine, or maybe there's I wonder, still a Scorpio on the bottom, some sense of abandonment. Pluto's down there as well, some sense of something was missing, and I want to be able to fill that in for my family.
And maybe through friends, seeing other ways to live, maybe being taught as a child that only people in this religious community are saved, or, are living the true life. And then through experiencing other people, through maybe going to their friends' homes, seeing, there are other ways to live, kind of broadening their worldview.
Yeah, I agree. And I also wonder if that Jupiter retrograde if there's a delay in actually making friends, like maybe it comes a little bit later in life that we're able to really do that and connect in that way. So I wonder if that's a piece of the story. And something else I think about, the 11th house, naturally ruled by Aquarian energy, Uranian energy. I'm looking at this node and this Venus here.
Mhm.
You know, in that north node, I need to move towards it. Let's go, make friends, get out there. You know,
Yeah.
it can't just be you. You're not the only one. Their teamwork makes the dream work is a real idea, but that would break free from both of Uranus's both traditional rulers, right? Saturn and Uranus here in
Mhm.
Capricorn. I got to break away from some traditional ideas in
Mhm.
order to do what I'm doing. This is a real, I think the theme of, again, break away from something from the family or a belief system from the family is prominent here.
And it's kind of interesting because this draws them into that space that they really spend a lot of their life away from, that sort of tending to wounded birds
Mm-hmm.
energy with Jupiter and Cancer and Chiron right there. And so it could be that maybe they can get sucked into some situations where they're being exploited for their kindness and humanity and learning to say come back to this all this Capricorn energy. And there's a big difference between helping and enabling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting chart. I mean, I think they're all interesting. You know,
Yeah, I know. It's so fun to study a chart before you do a reading and then meet the person. It's just the most fascinating way that seeing how all these things you looked at are just like coming into being, but in ways you can't really anticipate.
yeah,
You see
yeah.
the energy, but how it manifests.
Is absolutely phenomenal. And then you get to sit and explore with someone and see what the entirety of their story kind of has been. And that's why I think natal chart readings are so profound, because we're not just looking at, okay, what's the influence coming in now, which is beautiful, but it's who are you? Where have you been? Where's the journey at right now? And from there, we can see where we're going.
Yeah, yeah. And so kind of getting grounded first in the chart, and then you can start moving the chart and
Absolutely.
and seeing how the person is moving and growing as the chart moves and grows. But you know, it always surprises me, people who never heard of astrology before they come for a reading, how well they live their charts.
I know.
Not even knowing.
Yes, absolutely. Which, and then you see someone's chart and you get them to understand it, and it's like, oh, it all just makes so much sense. It all just makes so much sense.
You know, and I think it's a big step towards moving from I am just a victim of my circumstances into understanding this is my path. These
Mhm.
are the lessons put in front of me, some wonderful, some painful, that is helping me grow into being my best self and being a person who can really come into the world and contribute. So,
Absolutely. Man, Stephen Forrest, I just love the way that he said it in his book, Inner Sky. He said, you know, you can go to therapy or psychotherapy and do any of those things because astrology produces the same result. But the real gift of astrology is speed. We just get to it. It's like
mhm.
we could spend 6 months talking about this, or let's just talk about it right now, and then you can go get the help and the treatment
Right.
you need.
Yeah, he used expressions like putting on your reading glasses. Yeah,
Yeah.
how things are just like kind of vague, and then you put on your reading glasses when you see someone's chart. Oh, that explains everything.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, you guys, hopefully you've been able to kind of track and follow along with what we're doing. Please, after the video after the live is over and the video pops up, click into the description box down below and go right to the link so that you can get the resources that we've got for you. Put them on your flashcards and start to tell the story of your chart. Don't worry about those aspects if you're not ready for it. And let's see what kind of stories you get for yourself and your family and the male people. You know, it's always fascinating to see what's going on out there.
For sure. Yeah, and then always kind of when you're looking at the story, just and all the keywords, finding a way that you can see the positive and how these planets are working for you. This back to Stephen Forrest, who was the first person who told me about this flashcard, or you know, I read about in his book this flashcard system. He said the planets are here to help us.
Absolutely.
Nothing you have in your chart is here to hurt you. It's only here for your growth.
Absolutely. Cosmic conspiracy to help us.
Yes.
Even when they present challenge, it's for us to meet and grow. So absolutely thank you guys. And I will make sure that Sally's information is, of course, below this video as well, in case you want to reach out and connect with her. And we look forward to bringing you the next set of lessons. Who is up next is Margaret Gray, who's going to also take us through some chart interpretation, and she will be bringing in the aspects that Rick Levine just talked to us about, and Rachel Lang. So we look forward to seeing you guys in the next class, and we'll be answering questions on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So leave them below the video, okay? Bye, everybody.